Hi and good evening, everybody. Yo me llamo Alberto. My name's Albert, and this is Vlogs About Nothing. Thank you for taking the time out of your life to join me. I really appreciate it. It's Friday night. We're chilling, doing nothing. Openly advocating for everybody out there to do nothing. Just chill, do nothing. So, yeah, I want to talk tonight about the English language. Okay, so I had always had a striking feeling, that there was something sus about the English language. So hear me out, indulge me. Um, in high school, I dated a girl, my high school sweetheart, we'll call her. Dated a long, long time, many years. Her father was a professor emeritus of English at the local college, and her mother was a linguistic anthropologist. And so, I'm a working class guy myself. My my dad is a painter, and my mom is a mother. She's currently working right now or whatever, from what I hear. But that's just kind of the background of that situation. And I say this because in that time, the English language is, I brought up the background and stuff. It's been something that has obviously been a big part of my life in terms of both the working class mentality of really not kind of dissecting a language as compared to the completely, opposed position of which an adult human being is like making it a career to figure out like where language comes from and its origin and things of this nature. And that sort of hybridization of background brings me to some interesting sort of perspectives in that English, the kind of English that's spoken currently, as so far as I'm concerned that I know of, in this part of the country, is sus in that I remember a teacher telling me when I was like in first grade or something, giving us a history lesson or something, and I distinctly remember the mention of a class or a caste system. And I distinctly remember the teacher, dividing the caste system as it was defined, I think, in terms of, like a tier sort of hierarchical structure of human beings being better than other human beings for no apparent reason other than I'm better than you. But I say this because in that caste system, within the caste system, language through intention was meant to divide classes. And so, you know, I advocate for accountability and transparency in all walks of life. And I guess the best kind of example in the modern day world would be the fact that working professionals speak in jargon and in technical terms that are um, not difficult for the layperson to understand, but because there's no pretext for that layperson, definitely espouses any sort of correlatable meaning to that word, right? And so, the English language is tricky in that it still divides people. Language divides people. Just like borders divide people. Without their division, there would be unity. And I find that the background from the linguistic anthropological part of my life really sort of lit the fire of seeking or inquiring about that, about how being formally taught as well as being formally exposed as well as just the general vibe of language, the English language, and its absolute domination of propagating division. Um, Slang, jargon, things often associated with the layman, ain't, euphemisms, these things like in terms of generally perceived as like dumb language, if there was such a thing. Because if that standard, which isn't accurate, existed, then to not be dumb, you need to speak with higher vocabulary, comprehension, articulation, and understanding from teaching specifically what those words mean. And when you speak them, how it impacts and how it defines essentially who you are. That's division, in that it allows for a unique kind of individualism, but while that same unique individualism is in fact that, it is also a marker for standardizations to be met and or delved from in that sort of divisionary kind of concept. And so, yeah, I feel like language and borders are both things, manifestations like that are false, in that we should be really focusing on unifying language and understanding the roots of where language and where it comes from, and where the words that we speak derive, and the meaning of them, and how they've been taken from Latin words and from Greek, and from Old English texts and Sanskrit. There's English language is really interesting. But again, I feel like because of its interest and because of its potential power and influence over people, it's something just like borders that have been, purposefully placed as obstacles to prevent human beings from unifying. Speculation, obviously. Just what goes on some level in my mind, in terms of, if people could communicate, people could get a lot more done. This goes with that question. I don't know how people could argue anything other than that. When people speak the same language, they can communicate ideas, values, they can pass down traditions, they can trade recipes, they can trade in an open and an honest kind of a way. When people don't speak the same language, or when they're unwilling to learn by an honest person, thereby requires two things. It requires an honest person to be teaching, and it requires a person to want to learn. Two things that are ultimately just another part of the human condition and free will and free choice. Meaning, if you didn't speak English and you wanted to learn English from me, and I decided to teach you all the bad words and telling you that they're good words, you wouldn't know the difference, and you'd go out there saying some really stupid stuff as it concerns the actual iteration of our English language, but, falsely presented in a way that convinces another human being that it's accurate. Because that other human being doesn't know. They have no reference point whatsoever. So yeah, you could be dropping F bombs, calling everybody and their mom, bad words and stuff, and all the while, you're teaching by example the wrong thing, either by accident or with intent. So there's many different variables as it concerns the socialization of different cultures and ethnic groups, and ultimately the convergence, of languages and so forth. But again, I think that it's interesting from a scientific perspective that throughout evolution, I feel like evolution would have probably pointed us in the way of a singular kind of unified language, moreover than the kind of categorical, super different languages that we find now throughout the world. Um, Again, you know, I think just the English language causes a lot of problems. And again, I think it's highly sus in that we don't really know where the words we speak come from, and that's important. I mean, Latin root words, you know, um, mean stuff. They mean stuff. That's why we speak it. So if we're taught to speak a language that we're not even sure, of its sort of real power, then yeah, I mean, it's kind of sus, you know? It's the lack of informed consent as it concerns a sacred sort of human condition principle in communication. You know, in that, again, communication can either build Rome in a day or pillage the earth overnight. Communication is essential. And without it, human beings would not get very far. There's only so far you can get with the nonverbal stuff. Although, ironically, nonverbal communication is more, impactful than not, which again is just some straight up irony. That's all I'm saying. How is it that the most important part of language and its communication is, in fact, the part that's only required to move your mouth to make words to clear up what you're saying in that body language? Quite the confusing stuff. Quite the confusing thing. Quite the confusing stuff. We all make mistakes here. Anyways, I hope that you guys have a really good night. I kind of been wanting to talk about that one for a little while just because, put it on the public record, what I've been thinking my whole life, and that's just the English language is suspiciously sort of, the way that it is, I think, for a very, very specific reason, which is to keep people dumb, I mean, not much dumb people can do, when we don't even know any better, and I'm included in that. I say dumb, we, us, me. Consider me the dumbest. I don't care. I'm just saying. So, I hope that you guys have a really good night. Thank you so much for watching my channel. I really appreciate it. And tell somebody about it if you like what you're watching. Maybe they'll subscribe. We'll get to the big numbers sooner than later. But regardless, I do appreciate you, and I hope that you have a really good night. Bye.